Captain Logan, and welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. Today we're going to talk about Power Rangers, and this, of course, is a big part of my childhood, and I thought, what better person to have as our guest host this week to talk about Power Rangers than none other than David Fielding.
Hey, how are you?
David, of course, was the original voice of Zordon, and so today I'm going to talk about Power Rangers with Zordon.
Hi out there, how you doing?
David, before we really get into Power Rangers, I wanted to ask just about some current stuff you're doing. I noticed on your channel that you talked about possibly doing a Zordon video blog, and I wanted to know if you were still thinking about doing that, and if you were going to do that like in the guise of Zordon, or what your plan was for that.
Well, there were a couple of ideas that were being thrown about. I mean, and it's still sort of like in its infancy because, well, I have to work for a living, so I have a job and other things that are going on, and so it's on the back burner, and I'd still like to do it. But one of the ideas I had would be, what Zordon does after the Power Rangers, if he has like if he does a bunch of odd jobs, and what would it be like to see Zordon in Burger King or something like that? I mean, just to inject a little humor into the character, but it was really just sort of a way to connect back with the fans to say, hey, I'm still here. There was a Power Rangers fan site called Ranger Board. It's still out there, and there was a couple of posts on there, wondering if I was still alive, and I was like, yes, I'm still alive. So that was the original impetus for putting the videos together, and so I was just trying to, toss out ideas about what it would be like to, do a video blog that talked about Zordon. I also wanted to do something in a little bit more serious vein, like, because Zordon his tube was destroyed at one point during the series, and so he dissipated and removed all the evil in the world. I was wondering, what would happen if Zordon actually reconstituted and came back, and did something in a little bit more of a serious vein and said, it was time for a new set of teenagers with attitudes. But again, all those things are just sort of like on the drawing board in the back of my head.
Yeah, well, I hope you get time to do some of that at some point, because I know I certainly would watch that, and I'm sure a whole lot of people would. I gotta ask you, how much of the show have you watched? I know some actors don't like to watch shows that they're in. Did you watch the show while it was on, and did you continue watching it all after you left the show?
To be honest, I did not watch a lot of it after I left. I watched the first year and that sort of thing, but then I sort of, because I had left Los Angeles, I didn't keep up with it, and it was one of those things where it's like it was very nice to be a part of the show, and I enjoyed being part of the show, but I didn't really keep track of it. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I started to become aware about how popular it was and how iconic it was, and I had no idea that they actually had all of these conventions and stuff. And I actually attended my first convention this last March here in Pittsburgh, TechShowCon, and
I watched some footage
really
from them.
Amazing to see all of these kids and adults who just loved the show and wanted to know a lot about it, and it's just really great to be a part of something that was very positive for a lot of people.
Have you been approached at all about doing Power Morphicon, and have you thought about maybe going?
I'd love to do that. I was approached, and I think I need to fill out their guest request form or something like that, and I have yet to do that. But yes, I have been approached, and I would love to do it.
I was absolutely flabbergasted when that started and how big it is. I never would have expected that many people would show up for a Power Rangers convention. The thing is massive.
Yeah, it is.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get into your part on Power Rangers and the original Zordon?
Sure.
And I got to tell you, growing up when I was watching Power Rangers, Zordon was like one of my absolute favorite parts, because I just loved the idea of a being that was from another dimension who was talking to people through a tube but couldn't actually do anything with them, so he just did his best to tell them what they ought to do and that sort of thing. I thought it was a really neat idea. Were you, when you started the show, and I know you were only on for the first 40 episodes or 40 something?
Well, they continued to use my face and my image throughout the series until his tube was destroyed, but my voice was only used for the first 40 episodes, the first real season of the show.
When you first started reading Zordon and you first started looking at the kind of dialogue that you had, were you okay with the fact that your character was mostly there in expository kind of role, or were you hoping that eventually they would branch the character out and develop him a bit more than they did?
At the time, I was just happy to be a part of it. I mean, I had. The interesting thing is I had only been in Los Angeles for 2 months when I got invited to the audition. So I hadn't been in LA very long when I suddenly found myself part of a kids television show, and I was like, wow, that's really amazing that somebody who just came out here and all of a sudden is involved in this thing. So I was just very happy that I was a part of this show that was going on a weekly basis. There was talk early on that they wanted to have the character who played Zordon to also play the character of, I think his name was Eddie. He was the guy who ran the juice bar.
Oh, weird.
And they talked about, so that Zordon not only kept an eye on the kids from the perspective of the other dimension, but he was also possibly, this other character in the bar who would keep tabs on them while they were, not as Power Rangers, but just as their kid, as themselves. But somebody up in the upper left said, no, the guy at the juice bar needs to be large. He needs to be fat because that's funny. A fat guy running a juice bar, that's funny. So,
and that's like the only reason they changed it?
As far as I remember, yeah. I mean, I may be misquoting somebody about that, but that's what I remember from being there.
When you were on set and recording, obviously that's your face on screen. Were you like just in front of a green screen? What was the process?
Well, what happened was I went through the audition and I got cast as a role, and this was before the show had actually been picked up by Fox. We were originally just filming it as a demo pilot so that they could pitch it. And I got the job. I went down to a warehouse in Van Nuys, I think it was, and it was just like this big warehouse. There was a big green screen. They shaved all my hair off, glued my ears back, darkened my eyebrows, and I sat in a barber chair in front of the green screen for like 6 hours, something like that, just doing the dialogue over and over, doing different takes, different facial expressions, and that's the last time they filmed me. They used that footage throughout the next however long the series ran for until they removed the character, but I never went back on set after that point. They just reused the footage, and it was, from their perspective, from a production perspective, it was very cost-effective to do that. It sucked as an actor, but, I mean, what can you do? And so after that point, I would just go down to the recording studio and do my voiceovers whenever the script required.
So you probably never had a chance to see the sets of the show or anything like that?
No, I didn't. I never did. I was pretty good. I was on pretty good terms with Tony Oliver, who was the head writer at the time, and I was sort of grooming myself and submitting story ideas, sort of like trying to do stories for the show. But by the time that everything started taking off, I was done with Los Angeles. I was like, you know what, I'm not really happy here. I don't want to be here anymore. And I guess looking back on it, it wasn't necessarily the best decision, but it was the best decision for me at the time.
Sure. I read an interview with you from the mid-'90s just before the movie happened, and you had said at that point that you were hoping that they would bring you back for the film. Was there ever any talk about that? Were you ever approached about it? Did you ever approach them about it?
I actually got a phone call. I remember this very clearly. It was I want to say it was the following fall. It was like the fall of '94, or maybe '95. It was around, and then I did get a phone call from Saban saying that they were getting ready to film the Power Rangers movie, and they wanted to know if I was interested in coming back and reprising the role of Zordon. I was like, yes, very, very much so. And they had a director lined up, and everything was looking like it was going to get filmed in the States. And then for budget reasons or whatever, they decided to film in Australia, and so they hired a new director, and they went with casting a local down there, so the role got recast. So rather than flying me down to Australia, they just cast somebody from there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's unfortunate. Did you ever see the film?
I have seen portions of it, yes. I mean, I guess in a way I'm kind of a bad Power Rangers fan. I haven't kept up with it, and I told that to the people at the convention when I was on there. I was like, hey, I wish I knew more about the show, and because it's really fun. And what was neat about being at the convention is I got to see a lot of the Japanese version of the show and how it's still going strong, and how the latest iteration of the show is like a pirate themed show, and they have like a pirate ship and all this kind of stuff. So it's really great to see that this team of heroes has continued, throughout the years, and I think that's really cool. And I feel kind of ashamed that I haven't like kept up with it and said, yeah, I'm a part of that. And I don't beat myself up about it, but I mean, I do feel like I have let the fans down a little bit because I don't know a whole lot about the show. But
yeah, well, that's understandable. It's not like, I mean, I obviously don't want to talk the show down, but I mean, it's not exactly for adults.
When I say that, I kind of feel like I let the fans down because what I really like about the show is its positive effect. That it is a show that is all about you can do this. It's just find the strength inside you, and if you believe in yourself and you have your friends around you, you can accomplish anything. And I think that's what I'm most proud of about the show, is that it is a show that tries to teach good things and to lift somebody up. I mean, I met so many people at the convention, and I've talked to so many people online that talk about how the show was really positive for them, and that dark times during their childhood, whenever they, like their parents were going through a divorce, or they weren't communicating with their father very well, there was this show that they could escape to give them some good feelings and let them know that they were okay, that things would be okay. And I've had a number of people tell me that Zordon was such a positive character for them, and really was sort of like a replacement father when their father couldn't be there for them. So that's what I mean when I say like I feel like I let the fans down because I didn't keep up with that.
When you first got the role and you were trying to decide what the voice was going to sound like, how did you decide what to go with? And also, did you have any idea that they were going to modulate it later?
I think when they described the part to me that they were going to, because he was in this interdimensional time warp thing, that the voice would be modulated. It's very interesting because when I got the phone call about the audition, I thought it was just going to be another cattle call. I would go stand in line with like 500 guys, read my lines, and then go home and not hear anything. But when I showed up at the offices at Saban, it turns out it was just me and this other guy. And this other gentleman was sitting across the room from me, and he was reading his lines, and I had mine, and I could hear him practicing his voice. And he had a very interesting take on it. He was going with a more high-pitched, kind of odd wizard-type voice. It's very, Power Rangers! And I was thinking to myself, okay, well, if that's the choice you want to make, that's fine, but that's not what I'm reading in the script. Because the way the character had been described to me is that he was a mentor, he was a father figure, he was a positive thing for these kids. I thought, well, he needs to be more, powerful. So the voice that I came up with was pretty much the voice that we ended up using, which was more of a Zeus-like voice, somebody who was, up in the clouds, somebody who would speak to them in a very commanding but gentle and benevolent way. So the voice that I went into the audition with was basically the voice that we used during the show. And during the audition, they had me stand on a table in front of the kids because all the 5 original Rangers were there, and the director and the producers, and I was standing up on a table and I was reading the lines, and I remember very clearly getting through with reading the lines, and Jason St. John turning to everybody and goes, well, I think we found our Zordon. And then I went home, and 2 hours later I got the phone call saying I got the job. So.
Well, that's really cool. I didn't realize that you even got to meet the actors at all.
Yeah, I mean, I met them at the audition, and then I saw them the day that I shot in front of the green screen, because they also did, they were feeding me lines during that time too, so I met them at that point. But after that point, I never really interacted with them again, unless I saw them in the studio where we were doing the voiceover.
Well, hopefully at some point you'll get to do Paramorphicon and see some of them again.
That would be good. I'm not even sure if they would remember me, but because we had so little interaction.
Yeah, well, they probably at least remember what your face looks like, because your face looks like Zordon's face.
Thanks.
I mean, Zordon's face is a little blurry, but you've got the same eyebrows. I mean, the eyebrows are definitely there.
Yeah, they're pretty unique.
I gotta tell you, when I was a kid, I had the Command Center playset, and I don't know if you ever saw that thing, but it had this little voice box that you could talk into, and it was supposed to make your voice sound like Zordon.
Yeah.
But I never talked into it and sounded like you, and that always upset me.
Well, I knew the show was going to be really good because I think that first Christmas that I was back in Pittsburgh after leaving Los Angeles, I walked by a KB store and KB Toys, and there was the Command Center, and there was my face in that too. And I was like, oh, there's my face. That's awesome. I'm not going to see a penny of that.
That's me. Did you ever get any Power Ranger memorabilia? Do you have anything?
I do. I actually have the action figure that is the Zordon head, and I have a couple of copies of the Sentai magazine that I did an interview for, and I think I have a couple of the original Power Rangers coloring books, because I had bought a bunch of those to send over to relatives that I have overseas, and I think I still have some of those somewhere. But the action figure is very cool. I was like, oh, I have an action figure.
Is there a figure from back then of Zordon that I don't know about, or is that the 2010 one?
I think that's the 2010 one.
I got to tell you, you should feel really good about this. When those came out, I was geeking out a little bit that they were putting out more Mighty Morphin stuff again, and I asked my wife for 3 things for Christmas. I asked her for the Megazord, I asked her for the Zordon, and I asked her for the Goldar.
Nice.
And I got the Zordon. I got all 3 of them. But, yeah, I was pretty excited to get the Zordon head. So, yeah. So, yeah, I have you as an action figure.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I mean, he doesn't have a body, but, I mean, I have an action figure. So at least I can take that with me and say, yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah, it's probably not, like, the most fun toy to play with, because you'd pretty much just, set it on your desk and talk to it.
Yeah. And I kept mine in the bubble wrap. I'm not going to open that thing up.
But I thought it was really cool they finally put out a Zordon. I was like, yeah, that needed to happen. Yeah, the unfortunate thing about Zordon is that you can't really make a costume. You can't really cosplay as Zordon. So talk to me a little bit about what you did after Power Rangers. I know you worked a little bit in the video game industry. What did you... Well, actually, you worked quite a bit in the video game industry. What did you do there? What are some of the games that you worked on?
Well, when I came back from Los Angeles, I reestablished myself as a working actor here in Pittsburgh. I was doing commercials, radio voiceovers, and just outside of Pittsburgh, there's a small town called Jeanette, and Jeanette had a small video game company there called Dreamforge, and I started doing voiceovers for them, and they did a lot of the early Dungeons and Dragons video games, and so I did voiceovers for, there was a Ravenloft game that I did, and then Menzo Barrington was another D&D video game that I did voices for, and I actually got to do the voice for Dritz, which I thought was pretty awesome, because I was like, oh, Dritz, yeah, I know all about Dritz. And then I did some writing and voice work for another original game they did called Anvil of Dawn, and got to write the clue book for that. And so when my wife and I moved to the Boston area, I got involved with Impression software. They did the game, the city building games, and I hired as a QA tester there, and I was also providing voiceovers for the games they did, Zeus and Poseidon. And then because I was a QA tester, I got farmed out to Stainless Steel Studios, who did Empire Earth, and I did voiceovers for Empire Earth and QA tested that game. And by the time we got around to the final cycle where that game was going to get released, I was the lead QA tester on Empire Earth. After Empire Earth got released, then I got hired by Mad Dog Software, which did the sequel, Empire Earth 2, and then I worked for Mad Dog for about 5 years before there was some downsizing, and then I went to a smaller company south of Boston called Create Studios, and I worked for them for a while. Then the divorce happened, and the economic situation happened, and I lost my job there, and then that's when I moved back to Texas. So I spent a lot of time doing voiceover work and voice directing for other actors that we would bring in to do voices for characters for the scenarios, and it was a lot of fun to work in the game industry during that time because it was such a different atmosphere from what I was used to. When you're doing live theater or comedy improv, your feedback loop is pretty much immediate. You know right away whether or not the audience likes it or doesn't like it. But in the gaming industry, you have to wait 6 or 7 months before somebody comes along and tells you, oh, you know what, that's really not being fun. And so you're like, oh, you got to scramble to try to fix it. But so that's what I did for like between 94 and 2008.
What kind of improv experience have you had?
When I was going through the Master of Fine Arts program here at the University of Pittsburgh, a couple of classmates started what we call Friday Night Improv, and that Friday Night Improv is still going on at the University of Pittsburgh as we speak.
Wow.
And that was started in the fall of '89. So it's been going strong for over 20 years now, and it happens every Friday night at 11 p.m. And it basically started out as a way to give the undergraduate students at the university a chance to get stage time, because during that time, a lot of the theater productions that they were doing at the university were cast using graduate students, and a lot of the undergrads didn't get a chance to get a lot of stage time. So these classmates of mine put together this Friday Night Improv to give the undergrads a chance to get up on the stage and to stretch their wings and stretch their muscles and that sort of thing. But then it became a lot of improv exercises and games and stuff like that, and it turned into like this 3-hour extravaganza that would start at 11 o'clock at night and go until 1 in the morning. And it's still that way, and that really captured my imagination. And so I would go every Friday and participate in that. And then when I was out in Los Angeles, I was part of a improv group called the LA Connection, and they're still going on. And the great thing about the LA Connection is that they would do these kind of like Mystery Science Theater 2000. They would say an old science fiction film and then provide new dialogue for it, which was made up on the spot a lot of times. And I really liked improv, the flying by the seat of your pants, trying to come up with ideas in the spur of the moment. I think that helped me when I was going through auditions and stuff in LA, because I was able to just sort of turn it on and turn it off whenever, they would ask me to try something different in an audition, and I think it just really helped. And I'm still doing improv now. There's what they call the Improv Jam that happens every Thursday night at this at a location in downtown Pittsburgh, and it's just a lot of fun to get up there and play and make people laugh.
I can't imagine going to one of those and doing that for 3 straight hours.
Well, I mean, they would break it up. I mean, they would have there was a half hour to 45 minutes in the middle of that would be a showcase, which would showcase either a musical artist or somebody who had some songs or another talent that they wanted to display. And it was just a free forum for people to get up and do to perform in front of an audience and give them a chance to get some feedback and stuff. So it's just a really, really great thing.
Okay, I got to ask you, do you sing?
I wish. I think I can carry a tune, but I would probably need a lot of coaching in order for me to actually sound good.
I was going to say, because I think if you do the Zordon video blog, you should do a Zordon musical.
Well, I guess with the auto tuning, I could get away with it.
You should do like a Zordon Alpha 5 duet.
Yeah.
By the way, going back to Power Rangers for a minute, I know I'm jumping around, but how did you feel about Zordon having to work with kind of the incompetent robot?
I got asked that question at the convention, and I sort of gave a funny answer. I was telling them how much Zordon really hated Alpha 5, and would really enjoy it whenever he would screw up. But no, I mean that's the actual answer. I understand the necessity for comic relief, and I think the character was a great foil for that.
Oh yeah, he's hilarious. I always really liked Alpha, but I just always wondered. Yeah. But Zordon is so competent. How did he get stuck with that guy?
I'm not sure, because I'm not really sure what the whole backstory is of why Zordon left Eltar, you know, if he was exiled and all this other kind of stuff. But I think it was a way of him, maybe it was a way for him to sort of like test himself, to see, you know, could he continue to be this benevolent guy without losing his mind. But I mean, I enjoyed the character because if I remember correctly, there was a girl who performed the physical part, and then there was a guy that they had doing the voice.
Wow, I didn't know that. I would have figured that was switched.
No. Yeah, it was a girl in a suit, and the fellow that would do the voices was often in the booth with me whenever we were doing the voiceovers for the episode.
Oh, that's pretty
cool.
cool.
In there just before I got there, and we would meet. But yeah.
What was he like to work with?
He was great. I mean, he was very confident. I mean, we would both be in there and out very quickly, and the guys in the booth really enjoyed working with us because we didn't like screw up a lot, and we were there to do our job and to work and get it done, and they appreciated that. I think there's a couple of blooper reels out there where there were some funny faces that I had made when we were doing the filming, and there's like a drunk Zordon, and there was one time when Alpha was bouncing around the command center and sparks were flying everywhere, and I was just, you know, riffing while they were, you know, fiddling with the tape and stuff, and I was just like, idiots. I was surrounded by idiots, and just sort of enjoying the moment of Alpha destroying the command center because he had pushed the wrong button or something.
See, maybe what happened was because Alpha is Alpha 5, maybe Zordon just killed the other 4.
I mean, it's
maybe
also
he just
possible
got really
Zordon
angry.
was trapped in that dimension that he had no physical way to repair any mistakes.
Oh, well, yeah, that makes much more sense.
I mean,
I was
Alpha
joking.
basically had to repair himself, so if he screwed up, I mean, that's Zordon's just working with defective equipment. It's like,
well, that makes a lot of sense because I think there's an episode where Alpha doesn't know what a wrench is. Do you have any favorite Zordon lines?
I always enjoyed Morph to the Command Center. I felt that was a powerful way to get the character's attention. There was also I'm trying to remember the episode. I can't remember the exact line or the exact character, but it was the moment where Zordon was convincing them that no, you can do this. All you just need to reach inside and you know, have faith in yourself, and I thought that was good. But the one that sticks in my mind, the one that I remember the most, is Morph to the Command.
I think Zordon has probably said the word immediately more than any fictional character in history.
Yeah, I think that might be his favorite word. Yeah, do it now.
Now, get here. Everything is urgent.
Yeah. I'm on a timetable, people. Let's go.
I always really enjoyed Observe the Viewing Globe.
Yeah. Observe the Viewing Globe.
I got to ask you this last question. When you were growing up, and I'm assuming you were probably you probably watched TV when you were a kid. What was your Power Rangers?
My Power Rangers were. I got a lot of them from books, actually. I read a lot of the pulp books. I read a lot of Doc Savage, Shadow, Tarzan the Apes.
I didn't know you were a comic book fan.
Oh yeah.
We just did a half hour and didn't talk about comic books. That's horrible.
My Power Rangers were the Avengers.
Oh man. Okay, so, I've got to have you back on to talk comics at some point.
when the movie came out this past summer, I was just in seventh heaven because they are my heroes, and Captain America is just a man, and so I had a huge Avengers comic book collection, and yeah, and I grew up with Spectre-Man and Ultraman and all the kaiju characters, Godzilla, Mothra. I lived on that stuff as a kid, so it tickled my funny bone to know that I was part of the TV show where they were battling giant Japanese monsters. I was like, that's awesome.
Well, and plus it comes much out of that tradition, so you must have felt right at home.
Oh yeah.
It's really cool.
I mean, I really enjoyed the first couple of seasons where it was very obvious that these kids who were being filmed in Los Angeles all of a sudden transitioned to obvious old Japanese footage of them fighting. I thought that was just brilliant.
Yeah, and then after a while, it got to the point, I want to say by about season 3, where it was difficult to tell sometimes what was filmed there and what was filmed here.
Yeah, I think as the show went on and the budgets got bigger, I think they were able to do a lot more seamless editing and make it seem much more continuity-wise, more coherent. So, yeah.
Well, David, thanks a lot for doing the show. I hope you had a good time.
No problem. It was great. Thank you.
And I sure enjoyed getting the chance to talk to you. And like I said, I hope sometime maybe you'll come back and talk comics with me a little bit. Do you read anything current?
Well, I have a very good friend of mine who works at a comic book store, so I'm keeping up with all the new 52 that are coming out and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, that's mostly what we do here at Geekvolution is comics and superheroes, and I can't believe that didn't come up. That's hilarious. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks a lot, as always, for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. Once again, thanks a lot to my special guest, David Fielding, and be sure to go and watch some Zordon on first season Power Rangers. It's available right now on Netflix if you happen to have a Netflix account. And I'm Captain Logan, signing.
All right, thank you.